The day I found out my cousin had stolen our grandmother's recipe and built a $1 million empire with it, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat in my tiny apartment kitchen, staring at the food magazine with her face plastered across the cover, and I smiled. Because 3 hours before her product launch, I had already filed an international patent that would destroy everything she'd built. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all began. To my grandmother's kitchen, where the air always smelled like cardamom and secrets. Grandma Elena died on a Tuesday in October. The funeral was small, respectful. Family gathered like we always did, sharing stories and picking through her belongings with that careful politeness that comes with grief. My cousin Sarah was there, of course. She'd always been the golden child, the one who went to business school while I struggled through community college, the one who married well while I worked 3 jobs to keep my head above water. We were in Grandma's kitchen when Sarah found the recipe box, wooden, hand-carved, tucked behind the flour canisters like a hidden treasure. Inside were dozens of handwritten cards, each one a piece of our family's history. But there was one recipe that made us both stop breathing. The energy bars. Grandma had been making them for 50 years. Every family gathering, every holiday, every time one of us grandkids was sick or sad or celebrating something important. She'd pack them in little brown paper bags with our names written in her careful script. They weren't just food, they were love translated into something you could hold. The recipe card was yellowed with age, covered in Grandma's spidery handwriting. The ingredients were simple: dates, almonds, a specific blend of spices that she'd perfected over decades. But there was something else: notes in the margins, modifications she'd made, a process she developed that made these bars different from anything else on the market. They stayed fresh for weeks without preservatives. They had this perfect texture, this incredible flavor that made people close their eyes when they took the first bite. Sarah picked up the card. Her fingers traced the edges like she was memorizing every word. "These were always my favorite," she said softly. "Mine too." But I didn't say anything. I just watched as something shifted in her expression. A calculation. A recognition of opportunity that made my stomach twist. 2 weeks later, Sarah called me. Her voice was bright, excited, the way it got when she was about to ask for something. "I've been thinking about Grandma's recipe," she said. "The energy bars. Remember how everyone always begged her for the recipe? Maybe we should do something with it, honor her memory." Honor her memory. The words sat heavy in my chest. "What did you have in mind?" "I've been doing some research. The health food market is exploding right now. Natural energy bars, especially ones with unique flavors, they're selling like crazy. I'm thinking we could start small, maybe sell them at farmers markets, see how it goes." "We." She kept saying we, but I knew Sarah well enough to recognize the gleam in her voice. This wasn't about honoring anything. This was about money. "I'd handle the business side," she continued. "You know I'm good at that stuff. We could split everything 50-50. 50-50, like she was doing me a favor. I should have said no right then. Should have told her that some things weren't meant to be monetized, that Grandma's recipes were family treasures, not business opportunities. But I was broke. 3 jobs and I was still behind on rent, still choosing between groceries and gas money. The idea of splitting profits from something that could actually succeed was too tempting to ignore. "Okay," I heard myself saying, "let's try it." The first mistake was trusting her. For 3 months, we worked together, sort of. I handled the actual cooking, perfecting Grandma's recipe, testing different variations. Sarah handled what she called the business development. Marketing research, she said. Supply chain analysis, investor presentations. I should have asked more questions. We met every weekend at my apartment. Sarah would taste test the latest batch while I explained the modifications I'd made. How I'd figured out that the secret wasn't just in the ingredients, but in the order you mixed them, the temperature you kept them at, the way you pressed and shaped the final product. "This is incredible," she'd say, taking notes in her leather portfolio. "The texture is perfect. How did you figure out the pressing technique?" I'd explain step by step while she wrote everything down. Every detail, every innovation, every secret that Grandma had spent decades perfecting and that I'd spent months refining. The second mistake was telling her everything. By March, we had a product that was better than anything on the market. The bars had this incredible shelf life without any artificial preservatives. The flavor was complex, satisfying in a way that made people crave more. The nutrition profile was perfect. We'd found local suppliers for all the ingredients. I'd even designed packaging that would keep costs low while protecting the product. "I think we're ready," Sarah announced during one of our weekend sessions. "I want to start setting up LLC paperwork, getting everything official." "Sounds good," I said. "When do you want to file?" "Actually," she paused, drumming her fingers against my kitchen counter. "I was thinking I should handle all the legal stuff. You know how complicated business formations can be. My husband knows some lawyers who specialize in food companies." Her husband, the corporate attorney who made more in 6 months than I'd ever seen in my life. "I can handle paperwork," I told her. "I'm not stupid." "Of course you're not. I just thought it would be easier if I took care of the boring legal stuff while you focused on perfecting the recipe. You're so much better at the creative side." The creative side, like what I'd been doing, was arts and crafts instead of food science. But I agreed, because I trusted her, because Sarah had always been the business-minded one, and I'd always been the one who worked with my hands. It seemed natural to let her handle the parts of the business that felt foreign to me. The third mistake was believing that blood meant loyalty. April passed without much communication. Sarah was busy with legal paperwork, she said, setting up bank accounts, filing documentation, working with lawyers to make sure everything was properly structured. I kept refining the recipe, testing different packaging options, researching commercial kitchen rentals for when we were ready to scale up production. May came and went. Still no partnership documents to sign, still no business bank account with my name on it. When I asked about the delay, Sarah assured me everything was progressing normally. "These things take time," she explained. "We want to make sure everything's bulletproof before we launch." June arrived with radio silence. I started calling her weekly, then daily. Her responses became shorter, more evasive. She was traveling for work. The lawyers were backed up. There were complications with the business structure that needed to be resolved. By July, I knew something was wrong. I drove to her house on a Thursday afternoon. Her car was in the driveway, but when I rang the doorbell, no one answered. I could see lights on inside. I could hear voices. I sat in my car across the street for 2 hours, watching her house like some kind of stalker, until finally the front door opened and Sarah walked out with a man in an expensive suit. They were laughing, shaking hands, exchanging business cards. When she saw my car, her face went white. I rolled down my window. "Hey Sarah, how's that paperwork coming along?" The man in the suit looked confused. Sarah looked trapped. "This is my cousin," she told him quickly. "She helped me with some early recipe development." Helped her. Past tense. Like our partnership was something that had already ended. The man nodded politely and walked to his car. Sarah approached my window with the careful smile she used when she was about to lie. "That was just a potential investor," she said. "Nothing's finalized yet. I was going to call you later this week to update you on everything." "What's the name of our company?" I asked. She hesitated, just for a second, but I caught it. "Ellis Family Foods," she said finally. Ellis was her married name. I drove home in silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way the man had looked at her, the way she'd introduced me, the name of the company that apparently didn't include my name at all. The next morning, I did something I should have done months earlier. I hired a lawyer. Her name was Janet Martinez, and she specialized in intellectual property law. She was expensive, but she offered a free consultation for cases involving family disputes. I sat in her office that Friday afternoon and told her everything. The recipe, the partnership, the months of development work, the sudden communication breakdown. Janet listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and asked a single question. "Do you have any documentation of your contributions to this business?" My heart sank. We were family. I trusted her. I didn't think I needed to document anything. Do you have the original recipe? Any evidence that this came from your grandmother? I did. I had the original recipe card, still in Grandma's handwriting. I had photos of every family gathering where she'd made the bars. I had testimony from dozens of relatives who'd been eating Grandma's energy bars for decades. That's good, Janet said. But here's the thing about intellectual property law. Whoever files first often wins, especially if they can demonstrate they've developed the commercial application independently. But I did develop the commercial application. I figured out the production process, the shelf life, the packaging. She just took notes. Can you prove that? I couldn't. Every innovation, every improvement, every breakthrough had happened in my kitchen with Sarah watching and taking notes. From a legal perspective, it would be her word against mine. There is one option, Janet said slowly. If you can prove that your cousin is using your specific innovations without permission, you might be able to file for patent protection on the process itself. Not the recipe, but the production methods that make this product unique. How do I prove she's using my innovations if she won't even talk to me? Janet smiled. We wait for her to launch the product. If she's really stolen your work, she'll have to use your processes to make it work. Once she goes to market, she'll be demonstrating your innovations publicly. And then I can sue her? Then you can file for patent protection on the processes she's using. If the patent gets approved, she'll be infringing on your intellectual property every time she makes the product. It was a long shot, it was expensive, it was risky. But it was the only shot I had. I spent the rest of July documenting everything I could remember. Every process innovation, every temperature adjustment, every timing modification that made our bars superior to anything else on the market. I wrote down every conversation I could recall, every detail Sarah had observed and recorded. Janet helped me file a provisional patent application. It wouldn't give me full protection, but it would establish a filing date for my innovations. If Sarah launched a product that used my processes, and if I could prove I'd developed those processes first, I might have a case. August passed in tense silence, no word from Sarah, no company launch, no product announcement. September brought the first signs that something was happening. A friend sent me a screenshot of a social media post. Sarah had shared a photo of herself in what looked like a commercial kitchen, wearing a chef's coat with the caption, "Exciting things coming soon." She was wearing a chef's coat, like she was the one who'd spent months perfecting the recipe. October arrived with a bang. Sarah announced the launch of Ella's Family Foods on every social media platform she had. The product was called Elena's Energy Bars after our grandmother. The marketing copy talked about a family recipe passed down through generations and Sarah's passion for bringing traditional flavors to modern health-conscious consumers. The photos showed bars that looked exactly like the ones I'd been making. The ingredient list was identical to what we'd developed together. The nutrition facts matched my final formulation perfectly. But the name on the patent application was Sarah Ellis. I called Janet immediately. She filed yesterday, Janet told me. But here's the interesting thing. Look at the filing date on your provisional patent. I checked my email. My provisional patent had been filed 4 months earlier. Does that matter? I asked. It might. Depends on whether we can prove that the processes she's claiming to have invented were actually developed by you first. Do you have any evidence of when you made specific innovations? I thought about it. Then I remembered something. I have photos, I said. From our testing sessions, I was documenting everything for quality control. Different batches, different techniques, they're time-stamped. Janet's voice sharpened with interest. Send me everything you have. I spent that weekend organizing files, hundreds of photos showing different versions of the bars, notes I'd written to myself about process improvements. Even some videos I'd taken to document the mixing and pressing techniques. Every file was time-stamped, every innovation was documented. Every breakthrough Sarah had later claimed as her own was recorded in my phone with dates that preceded her business formation by months. On Monday, Janet called me back. We have a case, she said, and I think we might have more than a case. I think we might have her completely. What do you mean? The international patent she filed? She made a mistake. She claimed that she developed these processes independently, but your documentation proves that's impossible. More importantly, she filed for patent protection in 17 different countries. So? So if we can invalidate her primary patent by proving prior art, she's potentially liable for filing fraudulent patent applications in multiple jurisdictions. That's not just a civil matter. In some countries, fraudulent patent filing can carry criminal penalties. My heart started racing. What happens now? Now we file a prior art challenge to her patent application. We document your earliest date of invention. We prove that every innovation she's claiming was actually developed by you first. And then we file our own patent applications in the same jurisdictions. How long will that take? Months, maybe years. Patent disputes are slow. But here's the thing. Once we file the challenge, her patent applications are tied up. She can't enforce patent protection on a process that's under dispute. But she can still sell the product. She can try, but smart retailers won't carry a product with questionable intellectual property. Smart investors won't fund a company that might lose their core competitive advantage in court. And if we win? Janet's voice carried a satisfaction that made me sit up straighter. If we win, every bar she's ever made using your processes represents patent infringement. Every sale is liable for damages. Every international market she's entered without permission becomes a separate case. How much money are we talking about? Based on the market research she's been publicizing, potentially millions. I hung up the phone and walked to my kitchen, to the same counter where Sarah and I had tested hundreds of variations of Grandma's recipe. To the same space where I'd trusted her with every family secret, every innovation, every breakthrough that had made our products special. She'd taken everything from me, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed I was too naive to protect myself. The next 6 months were brutal. Patent challenges involve mountains of paperwork, detailed technical documentation, and legal arguments that read like academic papers. I had to prove not just that I'd invented the processes first, but that Sarah couldn't have developed them independently. But I had something Sarah didn't expect. I had every conversation we'd ever had about the recipes documented in my notes. I had photos of her watching me work, learning my techniques. I had timestamps showing exactly when each innovation had been developed and exactly when she'd observed it. Most importantly, I had Janet Martinez, who turned out to be the kind of lawyer who viewed intellectual property theft like a personal insult. Sarah's business launched in January. Ellis Family Foods hit the market with massive fanfare. Food blogs raved about Elena's energy bars. Health magazines featured them in gift guides. Grocery chains fought to carry them exclusively. For 3 months, it looked like Sarah had won everything. But smart money pays attention to pending litigation. In March, one of Sarah's major retail partners quietly dropped Elena's energy bars from their shelves. No explanation, no announcement, they just disappeared from stores. In April, 2 more chains followed suit. By May, Sarah's investor group was demanding answers about the intellectual property disputes that were showing up in patent databases. Meanwhile, my own patent applications were moving through the system, 17 different countries. Each one documented with the same prior art, the same proof of first invention, the same evidence that Sarah Ellis had built her business on stolen innovations. The phone call came on a Thursday in June. She wants to settle, Janet said without preamble. I was at work, stocking shelves at the grocery store, where I'd been picking up hours to pay legal fees. I stepped outside into the parking lot, heart hammering. What kind of settlement? Full ownership transfer of Ellis Family Foods, all international patents assigned to you, all existing inventory and equipment transferred to your name. I couldn't speak for a moment. Plus damage? Janet continued. She's made approximately $2 million in revenue over 6 months. Her legal team is offering a settlement that includes full business transfer plus $1.5 million in damages. $1.5 million? It's actually less than we'd probably get if we took this all the way to trial, but it's guaranteed money now versus uncertain money in 2 years. I thought about my grandmother's kitchen, about the wooden recipe box hidden behind flour canisters, about family secrets that weren't meant to be corporate assets. There's one more condition I want, I said. What's that? The product name changes. Elena's energy bars become something else. My grandmother's name doesn't belong on something she built through theft. Janet was quiet for a moment. That's going to reduce the settlement amount. The brand recognition is worth hundreds of thousands in market value. I don't care. Some things are worth more than money. 3 weeks later, I signed papers that made me the owner of a multi-million-dollar food company. Sarah kept her original investment amount back, minus legal costs. Everything else became mine. I renamed the product Heritage Energy Bars. Same recipe, same quality, same incredible taste that had made them successful in the first place. But now the profits went to someone who'd actually earned them. The first thing I did was pay off my student loans. The second thing I did was buy the house next door to where Grandma used to live. The third thing I did was call every relative who'd been at Grandma's funeral and tell them what had really happened. Family dinner that Thanksgiving was interesting. Sarah didn't come. But 37 other relatives did. We gathered in my new kitchen, which I designed to look exactly like Grandma's. Same layout, same colors, same feeling of warmth and safety and love. I made Heritage Energy Bars for everyone, packed them in little brown paper bags with names written in my best attempt at Grandma's careful script. As I watched my family taste the bars that had started this whole journey, I realized something important. Sarah had stolen from me, yes. But in doing so, she'd forced me to fight for something I'd never thought I deserved to protect. She'd turned me into someone who understood that family recipes aren't just food, they're heritage. They're love translated into something tangible. They're worth fighting for. And sometimes, if you're smart and patient and you document everything and you hire the right lawyer, they're worth millions of dollars too. My phone buzzes now and then with calls from food companies wanting to license my processes, international distributors who want to carry Heritage Energy Bars in their markets, investors who see the success we've built and want to be part of expanding it even further. I take some of those calls. I've learned to be businesslike when I need to be, protective when I have to be, ruthless when someone tries to take advantage of my trust again. But mostly, I just make the bars. In my kitchen, using Grandma's recipe and my innovations, creating something that makes people close their eyes and smile when they take that first bite. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just building something beautiful and successful and authentic, and knowing that you earned every piece of it honestly. Sarah tried to take my inheritance and turn it into her fortune. What she actually did was teach me that my inheritance was worth fighting for, and that some lessons, even the painful ones, are worth every penny they cost to learn.